Hello everyone. Before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping rules. Please ensure all your devices, including mobile phones, are silenced. All sessions today are recorded and being live streamed and will be available after the event. And please download the AWS Summit app to get a hold of all of the agenda and rate the presenters after the session. So welcome to the session on Generative AI-powered app development for future builders. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Derek Bingham.
Hi everybody, welcome to Silent Disco. My name's Derek. Before I begin, I just want to take a gratuitous crowd selfie because this room is packed. So if you don't want to be in the photograph, head down. If you want to be in the photograph, hands up. Beautiful. Thanks very much. Okay, so I give this talk 5-6 years ago at Summit about developer productivity, and it may surprise some and may not surprise some that everything I talked about 6 years ago has all changed. And so I'm giving this talk all about what developers need to know to be productive in today's world. It's a world that's changing. It's changing super fast. So hopefully this will help you. The world is changing at a rate that I recorded these demos 3 weeks ago, and now some of them are actually out of date already. But I hope you enjoy this. So traditionally, developers struggled and had these things to do in their workflow. So we don't just write code, we also refactor, we learn existing code bases, we fix bugs, we deploy to various environments. We do all of these things, and yeah, it was a overload. It was hard to be a developer. You had a lot that you needed to learn. And the tools that supported you back in the day, well, we started off when I started developing 20 years ago, it was a text editor or Vim. But then about 10 years ago, even more, we started looking at IDEs, and that helped us. We had IntelliSense, we had code completion, and it made us more productive. And then now, what we're looking at these days is all about AI assistance. Hands up anybody here who's currently not using an AI assistant tool. Excellent. So if you're all using some sort of AI assistant tool in your development lifecycle, you're already doing well. So the coding assistant I'm going to talk about at the start of this talk is Amazon Q. So it is a coding assistant. And I'm going to go through how to use Amazon Q. Some of you may have used it. Some of you may be using other coding assistants. But this talk is showing you not only how to use these coding assistants, but what to think about when we think about being more productive even in the future. So I'm going to demonstrate what you can do inside Coding Assistant using this demo app. So it's a simple Flask app. It's written in Python, and surprisingly enough, there's a feature missing. Like most software, there's always features to be built. And in this case, it's the delete feature. And this is the app. So again, very simple web app. Disclaimer, before writing this application, I knew nothing about Flask, and I'm not a Python developer. And so this app, which is running now, very simple. You log in. Once you're logged in, it gives you the ability to add a task. And so I'm just creating some test data here to add a task to make sure this application, which is running in local, is working. So that's my first task, some task dates. And then as developers, traditionally, if we were adopting or inheriting a code base, the first thing we'd have to do is understand what the application did. And so this is the first part of where you would use a coding assistant. So this is the actual application that I showed you earlier. And so what we're going to do is inline in Flask. I know nothing about Flask, right? So I use Amazon Q that I've got installed here in Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to use it to understand what Flask is. Now, in a traditional developer workflow, I go to browser, I Google what's Flask. But these days, in what a new developer workflow is looking like, you're staying in your coding assistant, and you're asking it, what is a Flask application? And it gives you the answer. It goes into detail. You can query that detail to go into more detail and understand what you're working with. As well as that, you probably need to understand the code. So inline, you can select a piece of code that you want to understand. You select it, right-click, and explain. And it will go through what the code that you've selected is doing, which is in the context. And also, it'll go line by line, telling you what each line is doing. So already, I've saved going to the browser. I'm just still in my IDE, and I'm starting to understand what this application does. I can also use shortcut keys. So Command-I in Amazon Q will bring up this window. And so once I've understood the code, traditionally I'd document it so the next developer wouldn't have to go through the pain that I'm going through. But now you can just write a prompt, add a doc string to this method, including names and params, return values and errors, and the coding assistant will add the doc for you as well. Now, I'm a very slow typer, terrible typer, so this has saved me time as well. So once I've added the doc, other inline stuff I can do just in this file is I can use the coding assistant to write a new route inside this file. So in IntelliSense, traditionally we do this line by line. Now with coding assistants, we can actually do it at the function level. And so the update entry function is being suggested for me. I can look at it, review it, and then when I'm happy with it, I can accept it, and it's now part of that code base. Again, inline, improving my optimal being quicker as a developer. Okay, so that's the inline, getting to understand the code base and writing some functions. But that's all inline, one file at a time. That's quite slow by today's standards because I'm only working on one file. What if I want to write new code and start thinking about that feature that's missing? So then we start to talk about agentic flow. And so here are the agents that's available in Amazon QDev. So I'm going to use the dev agent to do this. And I'm going to add a new method to remove an item. So this is the feature that's missing from my application. I'm going to ask the agent to update the HTML, update the code, and the SQL query, so it's persisted. And so it'll ask me, are you sure you want to do this? And then the agent will start thinking about the task that it needs to do. And in this case, instead of updating one file, it's going to update multiples. It'll create me a dev file so I can recreate the deployment in multiple environments, and then it will go through and work out, based on my prompt, what files it needs to do, and it'll also write me some tests that will check the functionality. And so that's what it's doing now. You'll see there's quite a lot of change files and updated files there, and the agent will then, once it's finished, I could then check, do the diff, check my new route, and verify that the task that I've given the agent is complete. Once I'm happy with the code, obviously the next thing I want to do after accepting it is test it. So I'll open up a terminal and rerun the application locally to make sure that that delete functionality works. It seems to work, but as a good developer, I'm also testing the existing functionality. So the create functionality, I create a new entry, and I also delete it. So that feature was built in minutes. Now I sped this up a little bit, but not too much. This demo I recorded first time. So that's our feature. We've used inline updates. We've used a agentic flow to do multiple updates. But also as a good developer, I need to document my code because traditionally documentation was a pain. But now we have these tools to help us. So to add documentation to this project, again, I use an agent. I use the doc agent, and I'm just going with defaults here. So it's going, do you want to create a README for this project? I certainly do. And so it will go away, read the project files, and start creating a README for this application. Which again, if you've ever created a README file, usually my README files are one line long. This is a Flask app. But this time, it's a lot more than I would traditionally write, and it's quite detailed. It gives you the structure of the application, it gives you how to install it, and it gives you the data flow as well. Much better than I would write on my own. So that has made me not only a more efficient developer, but probably a better developer as well. And then also, because we're thinking about security and shifting left and building security early into the application lifecycle, we could use these tools to create and enhance our security posture. So I'm going to use another agent inside QDeveloper called Review to review this project and find any vulnerabilities. You'll see here also I can restrict what it looks like. So I can restrict the context that the actual agent is looking at. So I can workspace, folder, even down to a single file. We're restricting the context and how much it looks at will then give you faster results, obviously, because it has to look through fewer files. And so the review agent is going off and doing its thing. And once it's finished, it will give me a list of vulnerabilities in this application. Now this I've sped up a little bit, so it should be quite quick, and there they are. So I've got some criticals, and I've got some highs. Typically I go for highs first because that's the low-hanging fruit. And in this case, it is very low-hanging fruit. So we've got a outdated Flask dependency. So I could actually right-click on that. I can go understand it, so view details. Again, I don't have to go to a browser, it's all here. And then it will suggest the fix. It will give me some insight into the vulnerability. And once I'm happy with the fix, I can accept the fix. Now, that's a very simple vulnerability to fix. But what about a hard-coded credential of vulnerability? Again, same process. You right-click on it, you view the vulnerability itself. It's an OWASP vulnerability. It'll also give you how to fix it. So this is going to use credentials. So it's quite a sophisticated fix for hard-coded credentials. I apply that fix, and then I can go through the project and fix up those vulnerabilities. And then finally, I'm going to talk about agentic coding. So what I've talked through here is using the agents inside QDeveloper. The next set of demos is going a bit deeper into agentic coding assistance. And I'm going to do those demos using Amazon QDeveloper CLI. So this CLI has built-in functionality to help us as developers get the most out of our products and most out of our tools. So it has inbuilt agent, it has inbuilt MCP, and I'll explain what MCP is in a little bit. And it gives you the ability to expand the tool set available to these agents exponentially. So really pick and choose the tools that you want to use. But let's see the CLI first. So you make sure the CLI is installed in your machine by doing qdoctor. Once qdoctor says everything looks good, I then start a agent session, so a chat session, qchat and accept all. So what accept all is saying is, don't prompt me for, do you want to do this, yes or no. I'm just accepting everything that it's going to suggest. And so I'm going to use this to add a PEP 8 coding standard across the project that I just showed you. And so that's what the prompt is doing. It's going, apply a PEP 8 coding standard to every file. So it's running the code style. It's found a tool, code style. It's running it across every file. When it finds an issue with code style, it's going in the red, I found an issue, I'm going to change it. And so it's going through line by line, file by file, and the agent is finding issues and it's fixing issues. I'm doing nothing, I'm hands off. Then once it's finished, it will give me a review of what it's done. And also I can add that rule into the project. So creating a directory, calling it pip8.md, adding that prompt. So these prompts that I can add to the project can get rerun every time I call the agent. And this, what I'm showing you now, is prompts.dev. So this is from the community, a whole set of prompts and rules that you can use with Amazon Q Developer to make your code better. And then finally in prompts.dev, it's got a concept of an MCP server. So MCP is what you should be thinking about now. It is how we're evolving. So I've went through the inline agent, I went through in single file updates using the coding assistant, but MCP gives you the ability of infinite tools. And I'll show you how that works. So this is my very dumbed down version of what an MCP, a Model Context Protocol is. It's a client, it's a server. The Amazon Q CLI that I showed you earlier has both of those contained in it. And what you do is you point it at tools. So a server will list the tools, prompts, and rules that it has access to. So if you want, for example, to get better coding standards, you can connect to an MCP server that has that as one of its tools or one of its rules. And you can go one or many. So you can build up that tool set, just keep going until you have your preferred tool set for how you work in the project that you work. So I'm going to show you how that works in Amazon Q CLI Developer. So again, I started with Q Doctor. And I'm going to accept all. So here it's saying, giving you a warning, because think about MCP and the tools that you bring down from MCP servers, they're running on your local machine, so you need to be careful of what you're running. You then define an MCP.json. So this is where I define where the servers are, the MCP server locations are. And AWS has a whole list of published servers on GitHub. Now for this demo, I'm actually going to use the AWS CDK MCP server. And I'll show you why in a little bit. But that's not the only one you can use. You use cost analysis, you can get diagrams of your AWS footprint, and it'll give you all the instructions on how to install, and also instructions on how to configure that MCP.json to get it running inside your AWS Q CLI. And so that's what I'm showing you here. So all of the list of the servers that you have access to through AWS Labs, and then how to get them started. So I'm going to use this. So I'm going to use the CDK server, and the CDK server has a lot of tools associated with it, and I'm going to create a CDK project. So this is the prompt I'm giving it now. Can you create a CDK project in Python to provision a 3-tier application? And I'm going to go further with this. I even spelled tier wrong. It's a 3-year service application. It also works this out. And I'm also going to specify the services that I'm going to use. Again, helping the prompt, so using API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. So a typical serverless 3-service application. It goes away and has a think, and goes, well, I think I need to start creating the CDK app. So it's using the CDK MCP server. It's got a list of tools there it can use, including CDK NAG, best practices for CDK, and it starts to build out a CDK project with best practices. And this is it. So it starts building every file that it expects to see in a Python CDK application. Now, if you haven't used the Amazon CDK before, Cloud Development Kit, it's infrastructure as code for deploying services on AWS. If you're not using it, you should. And so the agent will also pick out dependencies that are wrong. So if I specified use Python 3.11 and it didn't support, CDK didn't support Python 3.11, it would fix that. So it would change the Python version that it's using and then execute all of the tools. So at the minute, it's creating, downloading all of the dependencies that it needs to do. Again, I'm hands off. Once it's built and created all the dependencies, it's now CDK generates CloudFormation. So it's now creating and generating the required cloud formation that I need to deploy this application. Now, I could have also specified what the application does. So I could have said, create a CDK three-tier application that imitates the role of a dice, or be as specific as you could be in the prompt. It would build that as well. But for this one, in this demonstration, very simple three-tier application, please build it for me. And so once it's finished and deployed to AWS console, it also gives me the test curls. So again, I didn't do this, so I start doing some test curls. So put some data into the three-tier application I created, and it seems to be working. I can do a put, I can do a get, and it's created all of the files that I expect. I've got a handler there for the application, and here we have the CDK code itself for the provisioning. It's even created me a README file, again with a nice little architecture diagram of exactly what I specified. So I checked the code, because you must also check and verify what the agent gives you. So as well as checking the code, I'm also having a look at see what's deployed. So the tool that deploys it, it uses CDK, and it uses my AWS credentials that I've already got cached on the CLI. So that's how it deploys. And so I can then go in, once I've verified that the Lambda's there, I can verify that there's actually data in the DynamoDB. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just looking inside the DynamoDB to make sure that the test that I created earlier in the curl command is there. So there's one record, and there it is, test item. This is a test item. So to get a list of all the tools that I have made available using the MCP servers, I can do a list tools. And there you can see I'm using AWS Labs, CDK NAG, AWS Labs, CDK General Guidance, Lambda. I'm also using Get AWS Solution Constructs patterns. So reusing patterns that are already published, and also other community resources. So this is, I'm building up my developer best practice tooling, okay? And you can set this to how you operate, and this can make you super efficient. But when I first, like many people, when I first saw these tools as a software developer, I got quite frightened, because these are creating code that I didn't write. And so, yes, we have to verify, as I verified the code earlier, but also what really changed my mind was an exercise I did a couple of months ago with my 12-year-old son, a future builder. And so we'd heard of the vibe coding term, of where we're using these agent prompts and we're getting some software going. Again, as a software developer, slightly concerned, but as a 12-year-old kid, this was awesome. So here is a blog of how we built this game in a day over a weekend with my 12-year-old son, and we did it with the Amazon Q CLI just by writing prompts. And this is when the light went on for me. This was a aha moment, because my son didn't really understand software engineering, didn't really want to get interested in programming. He used this and he can't get enough. He is really caught the bug for writing software, and that makes me really happy. So what lessons have I learned as I've started to use these tools and get more efficient in my working? When you start off using these tools, I have used it for new code and glue code, right? That is where it can write whole functions, it can write whole applications, and you don't have to, you leave the existing code alone, so you can actually be targeted with that. Always have a developer onboarding plan. Every organization that you work for, every company will have a different set of tools that they want to use. You'll need to incorporate that into the developer onboarding plan. Obviously with MCP, if you're using MCP, be aware that these tools are running locally, so you'll have to vet and verify what you're using. Amazon Q Developer is free, so it's fully featured, and all you need is a builder ID. Browser tabbing is a thing of the past. Who knew? It's gone. It's over. We don't have to do it anymore. And then as developers, we become more writers and prompt engineers and higher level thinkers, which to me is really exciting because we're not focused entirely on writing beautiful code. We're actually focused on system design, architectural patterns, ways of making our system more resilient and become better developers. So this is what I've seen. We get faster. We're not doing the repetitive glue code stuff that we used to do, the frameworks and all of that stuff. And we focus on higher level activities. There were 3 key takeaways. And this is a quote I love from Keisha, who gave a talk at reInvent in Vegas last year. And it says exactly what I've been saying. Be more creative. Developers love being creative. We love it. And so these tools give us the absolute ability to be that, be better. Also, the community. So as a developer in developer relations, I have the privilege of talking to the magnificent AWS community daily. And one of our community members has written a whole stack of best practices on how to be better with these tools in Amazon Q Developer, and published the prompts.dev website where other community members are adding rules, prompts, and just really engage with the AWS community. It's a lot of fun and you'll get a lot out of it. So I mentioned Builder ID earlier. So if you want to get started with a Builder ID, it'll get you access to Amazon Q Developer. It'll also get you access to training courses. So if you haven't got a Builder ID, I'll urge you to sign up, get your alias, and start learning these tools and being more productive. So big 2 days ahead. Here are my recommendations. There's a bigger talk on MCP that goes on into greater depth on what MCP is. There's also a cool talk on serverless developer experience, something that I'm quite passionate about as well because it's got developer experience in the title. And also, you might have spotted the developer lounge right in the middle of the expo. We are there for 2 days, community talks only. So AWS heroes, AWS community builders are on that lightning stage talking about what they've built, how they've built it. And we've also got swag giveaways, so you can get a hat like this by entering a competition. We got cool demos, and you can have a go with Amazon Q Developer. So thanks for listening. Have a good 2 days, and see you around.